Welcome to session 2 of using the Bootstrap framework for web application user interfaces. This session is creating a Bootstrap project, so the initial project creation. So the goal of this session is to learn how to create a Bootstrap enabled web page. So just the basic creation in this session. So in this module, we're going to cover creating the Bootstrap enabled web page, which is creating the actual HTML page, setting the size of the page to the screen size, adding in Bootstrap, creating a container, and then we'll go and test it out. So creating a standard web page. Bootstrap is really nothing more than a framework around HTML5, as I've mentioned in the introduction. So to create, standard Bootstrap web page, you just create a standard HTML5 page as the first step. So you can see that on the screen here. It's pretty standard stuff. We have the doc type, and then we have the HTML tag. Inside the HTML tag, we have a header tag and a body tag, and then inside the header tag, we basically set the character set, that sort of thing. So again, just a standard old HTML page. And then what we do is we add in, as a part of the header tag, this meta tag. And basically what it does is it sets the viewport, which is sort of the size of the web app, if you will, to the full size of the device width. In other words, what we're trying to do is make sure that the web page width, it starts out being the same width as the screen size of whatever device the page is being viewed on. And we also want an initial scale of 1 because, as you know, in tablets and even PCs these days for touchscreens like Surface and that sort of thing running Windows, you can use your finger and touch to sort of zoom in on the web page, and so that's called scaling. And so we want to set the initial scale to 1. So we just include this as one of the meta tags in the header, and we'll show that in a demo in just a moment. The next thing we want to do is, again, inside the header tag, include 3 references. And the first reference is to the Bootstrap CSS file. And you'll notice that the reference here goes to cdn.bootstrap cdn blah, 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 blah. So for those of you who don't know what a CDN is, it stands for Content Delivery Network. And what it is a set of staging servers hosted around the internet by large internet service providers that hold common content that pretty much all web applications, or at least a large portion of web applications, use. And if you're a web page creator, you can pay to have your content hosted on one of these CDN networks. So just as a quick example, Microsoft Azure, which is Microsoft's cloud hosting solution, or Google's cloud. If you build an app and host it there, you can actually have your content additionally hosted on a CDN. And what that does is it speeds up performance so that so every user who uses the web app doesn't go get these files, in this case the CSS file, from the actual server that's running the website. I go get it from the CDN server that's closest to me. And I won't go into the details about how it figures all that out, but basically Bootstrap, or Twitter in this case, hosts these 2 files, this CSS file and this JavaScript file, on a CDN network all across the world, so that your browser goes to the nearest CDN server to get these files. Because one, they're a little big, contains a ton of classes and a ton of JavaScript, and then 2, so that it doesn't overload the server just to download this file that's essentially what's a static file, unless the version of Bootstrap changes. This jQuery is a JavaScript query library developed by Google, and it's used by Bootstrap. It's also used by a ton of other stuff as well, but it is used by Bootstrap, so you need that one too. So we include these 3 links in the header portion of our web page. A link to the CSS from Bootstrap, a link to the JavaScript from Bootstrap, and a link to jQuery from Google. So we include that in the header. So once we have the links included in the header of the page is then Bootstrap enabled. In other words, it now includes or has referenced or incorporated all of the functionality of those CSS files in that JavaScript library into the page just by referencing it. So we're done enabling the web page for Bootstrap. The only other thing to be mindful of is in Bootstrap, all content has to be inside what's called a container element. And basically, a container element is just a standard HTML div element with one of 2 classes. Either class container, which is a fixed width container, so that in other words, it's you can set the width however wide you want it. And you could have multiple of these containers, and so there's good reasons, you know, why you want your container not to be as wide as the entire screen. But generally, most, at least Bootstrap enabled web applications that I've seen use the container-fluid, which simply makes the container as wide as the screen. And remember, we know how wide the screen is from the meta tag we added earlier. So basically, the container-fluid, just as the screen size changes from device to device, or from going to portrait to landscape mode on a mobile phone or a tablet, or a Surface or something like that, it always keeps that container as wide as the screen. And so most of them, again, that you'll see use this. So I'm gonna do a demonstration now. So we'll flip over to Visual Studio here. So you'll see that I've just got a standard HTML page here. I've called it default.html. Here's this, you know, again, this is the absolute minimum required to have an HTML page. So what I'm going to go doing is just put in a title here. So we'll call it Hello World, which is traditional, right? And then, so here's my body. Here's where all the content goes. So remember, the first thing I said is we need a container. So let's go ahead and build our container. And for now, we'll just do class equals container. Oops. There we go. And then we'll put inside that, we'll just put a heading that says hello world. And then maybe a paragraph that says Bootstrap says hello. So there's my page. So this, if I were to compile this and run this, it would, look like a standard HTML page. I won't take time to do that, but it would look just like a standard HTML page, right? So what I want to do is take my page and, well, actually the container wouldn't be there yet. Let's take that out. So this would be just a standard web page. So what I want to do now, the first thing is, remember, I need to go add a meta tag to enable knowing the screen size and setting the screen size to the web page size, and setting the initial scale to 1. So there it is, right? What I showed on the PowerPoint. So there's the meta tag viewport, and it basically says, hey, take whatever the device width is and set that to width and set an initial scale to 1. So done. The next thing I need to do is add in the 3 references, the 2 to the Bootstrap, CSS, and JavaScript, and the 1 to jQuery. So let's do that again inside my header. So there's the one for the Bootstrap CSS. We'll go ahead and put some. There you go. And then I'll get the 1 to jQuery. There we go. that. Sorry, a couple of typos I was fixing from my copy paste over here. One more. There's the Bootstrap, and then we'll add this closing script tag here. And there we go. So basically, here's what I have. I have I'm missing. And so there are the three references to the Bootstrap framework. So the cascading style sheet, the jQuery, and the Bootstrap. So let's go ahead and run this guy. And what's Visual Studio's here is it's cranking up a local copy of Internet Information Services, and it is and it's hosting my file there. So here we go. Hello world. So there's my Hello World application. So again, here's our web page. It says Hello World, and Bootstrap says hello. So there's not much to it here. It sort of just works. The one thing I do want to do here is let's do this. So you notice I had in here my just standard container. So let's do the other tag here. So remember there were two container types, container and container fluid. So let's just do the other here and see what the difference is. Container fluid. All right. So we'll save that, and then we will restart the application here. And so you'll see Bootstrap says hello. It's pretty much the same thing. And as we go on, we'll see what the difference between the container and the container fluid is. But basically, again, the main difference is without the fluid, I can set the width that I want. With fluid, it basically takes the whole part of the web page. So that's it, right? So what we have is we have our basic web page. We have our meta tag to set essentially the viewport, which is another way of saying the size of the web app equal to the width of the device and scaled to 1. So we're not zoomed in to start with. We have our link to our CSS file, the link to Google's jQuery library, and the link to Bootstrap's JavaScript library. And then we have put our HTML code down here in the body inside a container, a div container with a class container-fluid. So that's pretty much it for creating a web page. I know it seems pretty simple, but we'll get into some more detail. But to get it all started, that's really all you need. So quick quiz. What adds Bootstrap to the standard web page? Which of the following are not part of Bootstrap? And then what are the two types of containers that must wrap all of the Bootstrap content? So the answers are here on the next slide, but to go ahead and go through those. What adds Bootstrap to the standard web page? Well, it's the references to the Bootstrap JavaScript and CSS libraries, as well as Google's jQuery library. There is no standard image library in Bootstrap at all. It does have, of course, the CSS and the JavaScript. There is no standard imagery. And number 3, what are the two types of containers? So there's div with class container and div with class container dash fluid. And there are the answers. So concludes session 2. We will pick up in session 3 with learning about the Bootstrap grid.